Yep, done.
All right, 15.
All right. All right. Before we get started, I'm not sure if everyone saw my message in general, but this is going to be highly interactive. All the pieces in gear in front of you, I encourage, unclip them, pass them around, try them out, etc. The only thing to keep in mind is you'll see a number on each piece of paper you have. And that'll correspond to a thing later on, so try to keep track of which piece of gear belongs to which station, number-wise. All right, let's get into it. I need 3 volunteers, first of all. John, all right, pass this to John. You're in? Here's this. And then Sarah. All right. So first of all, I've passed around 3 different items. Sarah, go ahead and hold that up. John, hold up your item. Patrick, hold up yours. So I'm going to get some crowd surveys on these. I'm curious, out of all the items, which one do you think is the oldest in the room? Everyone hold your item up. Oldest.
Like by creation or like
by invention?
By invention. Not by purchasing.
Wait, I think it's this one.
We'll do a vote. All right, everyone hold up your hand if you believe Patrick's item is the oldest. Okay, a few votes. How many think it's Sarah's item?
You said it with enthusiasm.
How many think it's John's item?
This is definitely new tech.
Carabiner not included. It's a thing scratched to it. It's the piece.
What is it? Is it a pulley or something?
That's a Grigori, but we'll go over that soon. But okay, cool. Before I reveal, next question. Which of these do you think is useless without a human doing something correctly?
No.
Trick question?
This is a trick question. All of them. It's completely useless if you're not doing the correct thing. The oldest one is Sarah's. We'll go over the history of how we got there shortly, but just thought that was a fun way to kick it off.
It seems the most refined. It's like the Raptor rented.
It really felt the most
Like-
refined.
Yeah.
Did they roughly do similar things, or?
Those 2 do similar things. That one is different back there that John has. Yeah, Patrick's and Sarah's do the same thing.
Okay.
A little bit.
We'll find out what that does.
We'll find out. Yeah, we'll find out. So before I go to the next slide, can someone give me the definition of what free climbing is?
Climbing without any tools.
Okay, anyone else?
Climbing without blading.
Without like
the harness.
without the harness?
Climbing without being attached to another person.
So everyone's wrong. This is one of the biggest misconceptions. Everyone hears free climbing and they think free soloing. They think Alex Honnold. They think no gear on you, completely climbing. The term free climbing means you are ascending without the aid of, I'm going to hammer in something, pull myself up on it. I'm purely me and the rock. You can still use protection measures with the rope, your harness, etc. So that's one big thing I want to get out the way is free climbing versus free soloing. Free climbing, you're ascending the mountain, just you and the rock, but you're still using safety measures in case you fall, that you don't fall all the way down. That's this right here. So free climbing, no rope, no protective system at all. Climbing without pain, it's not that either. I'm surprised no one answered that. I guess that one was obvious. I guess the forms of climbing, yeah, free soloing, we covered this. This is what everyone sees, like Taipei 101, Alex Honnold doing. The next one is aid climbing. That's kind of what I was describing. This was some of the earlier form of climbing, where you're actually using assisted tools to kind of climb up the mountain rather than you versus the rock. Top rope, this is what most people do in the gym. If they climb with a rope, this is you're attached to the rope the whole time. It's really just the piece that John has right there, a harness, and the rope, which is out there. Everyone out there too, there's like a station there, so feel free to play with that stuff. Lead climbing is a little bit different. That is all of those right there. All of those, yep. And that's the practice of you're going to have no rope above you, you're going to climb, you're going to clip that into a piece of protection, and you're going to clip the rope into that. So that's a little bit different, where the risks of fall aren't you're just going to hang from a rope, but rather you have distance to fall. Sport versus trad is the difference between this cam right here. So these are, and this as well, get this. These are to place into the rock when you have no bolts. So there's a few reasons you might not have bolts. One, in New York, a lot of times, they banned the practice of bolting before climbing came to the area. Most other areas, like Las Vegas, for example, it's banned to bolt, but prior climbers bolted a bunch of routes, so they're kind of grandfathered in, so you can replace them. Lawrence, you had a question?
What's bolting?
Yeah, so bolting is the act, great question. Bolting is the act of, you're gonna take a metal bolt and you're gonna drill a hole in the rock and you're going to fix that in there, use like epoxy or something expanding. And what that's gonna allow is, I get handed one of those, the other one. What that's gonna allow is there's fixed bolts on the side of the mountain that you're gonna be able to clip into and then clip your rope into with the other one. So if you were to fall, your rope is gonna catch on that. So that's the one. And then the last one, we don't really talk about it, rope access. That's like, how do you rappel off the side of this building and clean the windows, for example? It's more professional grade. Yeah, Mission Impossible style. All right, go to the next one. So let's get a little bit into the history of what was made first. It should be pretty obvious to everyone that we had ropes. So the first item was the rope, but it was quite different. The ropes of old age were like twine. They had no give to them. So although you had a rope when you were climbing, it was more of, you're probably gonna break your back, best case scenario, worst case scenario, you still fall off. The ropes of today are very dynamic. It's synthetic material where it has stretch to it, where you're expected for the rope to stretch when you fall to protect you. The next thing, which I tried to get one of these, I could not. Those of you who know the story, I was on Facebook Marketplace yesterday trying to find a piton. They're very old. I'll go over why they're old and not used anymore briefly. But this is a piece of metal that you would actually hammer into the side of the mountain, and then you would use that similar to a bolt, except rather than making a hole and making it replaceable, you're just going to hammer stuff in and then use your rope on that. The next piece, which was Sarah's, which was the oldest, is the nut. Imagine you have a crack in the rock. What this allows you to do is you're gonna set it in here with the shape of it, and if you fall, it's naturally going to be passive protection where it's gonna set into the rock and hold you. So what you would do is you would put this, find an ideal spot, you'd clip this into it, and then clip this onto your rope. So back to the last slide, trad climbing, it's all about the art of, you're gonna have to find places on the mountain to actually place these into, cracks, the features of the rock, and keep going. The next one is cam. So these basically do the same purpose. The only additional one this is, it's considered active protection versus passive protection. This is spring-loaded, so I'm able to, and I would encourage pass around the cams right there so people can do this themselves. Move these around. So these are spring-loaded, so you're able to place this here. It's like a syringe. Think about it like a syringe. You place your thumb on the bottom, 2 fingers on top, and you would go like this.
How many sizes do you carry?
Me, I carry 2 of the most common sizes. But depending on the route, you would ask other climbers for, I need 8 of one specific size, for example.
What is a size example?
Yeah, so they're named, it's on here. So they're actually numbered. Yeah, with the bigger numbers resulting in bigger sizes.
How does it like go into the rock? Is it like
Yeah.
use it first and then put it in?
With this, you need to find some sort of like V shape in the rock, right? But when you're thinking about a purely vertical crack up, you need force out, and that's when this comes in handy. So you would find the perfect size to insert it in there where you wouldn't want it completely engaged like this. That's not going to be good for it. And you also wouldn't want it open. You would want to find a feature that fits the sizes, and that's why you have so many different sizes that would fit in there where it would be fully engaged, something like this. These ends want to be fully engaged against the rock. These are rated to more or less catch a truck falling. So assuming that it's placed correctly inside the rock, it won't slip out. That's obviously part of the climbing. You need to make sure the rock's good, etc. Go ahead.
I have a question. Does the small one And this one pulls the same amount of weights in terms of security?
Most of those, some of the smaller ones, no.
Okay.
So you would want to be mindful of, I've placed one in there on that last one. I only want to go a little bit distance before placing another, or doubling up perhaps.
And the main materials they're using, like the cabling, is what, steel?
Yes. Yes.
Before you put in like both of these tools or either of the tools, how can you tell if the rock is secure? Are you just like feeling it with your hand and like
Yeah.
trusting, or
So it's
hoping for the best?
there is a practice where you'll kind of like bang on it and tug on it to see does this feel loose. Well, another great part is the community. People are climbing these routes quite popularly. There's apps for people to, and speaking of the apps, you would be able to look at a route and it would say exactly which pieces of equipment are ideal for it. It would say, hey, heads up, this has a lot of this size, so make sure you're not accidentally using, you know, let's say I only have 2 of these this size and I use both of them early in the climb. And then I get higher and I'm like, I can't place a piece of protection. I have to be riskier because I already used that piece. So the community is really good at that sort of stuff.
But as you're going up, you're leaving them behind, and then you gotta pick them back up as you're going down.
Yeah, so either you're going to rappel down from the top and take them out and then pull down your rope, or when you do the practice of lead climbing, what you do is someone's belaying you from the bottom, and then you tie up to the top and you belay that person, and then that person follows you. They're basically on top rope at that point, and they're going to remove the pieces, attach them, they're going to get to you to the point, you're going to transfer the gear, and then you're going to repeat. And you can do that for multi-lengths to get up a mountain, multiple lengths of the rope.
So there's no tools like that where can someone up on the rock self-dismantle everything?
There's some techniques for like self-belaying with some like sandbags, etc., some like redundancies, but I'm not really going to cover that. It's like pretty expert. Yeah, not recommended. Go ahead.
Did you see Apex?
No.
It was a new movie with Charlize Theron. I think they were doing this.
Gotcha.
Charlize Theron.
Yeah, to get back to the spreadsheet or the presentation, the cam. So a better piece of protection. Today, however, we have many different pieces of gear. We have one special for the gym. We have special for alpine environments. And what's cool is like even climbing debuted at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. So it's now very mainstream compared to like in the 70s, really, where most of this gear evolved. All right, we'll go to the next one. The next one is about kind of how we moved on from pitons. Just an interesting one. So before we get into this, does anyone know who Yvon Chouinard is?
Is he a climber?
He climbed. Yes.
Good job.
Yeah. Okay. Instead of anyone know Yvon Chouinard, name some outdoor brands that are associated with climbing. Arc'teryx. Patagonia. Yvon Chouinard. Scarpa. Yvon Chouinard is the founder of Patagonia. Before Patagonia, it was called Chouinard Equipment. And one of the first products they made was the nut. This was mostly popularized by Yvon Chouinard. And what's really interesting is before selling this, they were actually selling pitons. So piton, like I said, a piece of metal that you're hammering into the mountain. During the 70s, big movement for leave no trace outdoors. And as part of that, people no longer wanted to climb mountains and hammer in pieces. They started, as climbing was starting to be popularized around the Yellowstone, started to notice all these popular routes had scarring all the way up. And as people started to think about like leave no trace in nature, that sort of movement, they realized, what if we figured out a way to climb without scarring the rock permanently? And that's when this became popular. A really interesting thing about that is, I have attached here a picture of a letter. It's really hard to see. But basically, they sent out a letter. This used to be, before e-commerce, it was catalogs. So they had a yearly catalog they would send out, and people would mail in orders for the equipment. And they basically said, we're done with pitons. You shouldn't use them. They're bad for the environment. Buy this new product. And as you can imagine, as a company where your entire business model is selling this product and you're telling all your customers that product's irrelevant now, you don't need that, there's a lot of backlash. But ultimately, it did take over once people realized this was just as safe as hammering in a piton and much better for the environment and for leaving things behind.
This is the same thing with the Nobel family that were huge with C4 and explosives. They did the exact same thing.
Where they were like, don't use this anymore?
Don't use this anymore. Use
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. It's interesting now. I called nearly every outdoors climbing store in New York City yesterday, and no one could sell me a piton. And it's interesting to think, yeah, I'm giving a talk over why we don't use those anymore, and I can't find one.
We need a piton for the office.
We can buy some off like eBay, some old ones. Yeah. But I would have loved to have one for demonstration here today.
To go from the 7 to the 8-4, we can just.
She can't do it.
All right. Cool. So that's a brief history of that. One sport mini systems. We kind of already went over this. Well, I guess we didn't go over bouldering. You guys know what bouldering is, right? Bouldering? Do explain. Yeah. So you think about what you would climb if you needed to climb a boulder that was deposited by a glacier thousands of years ago. And that's basically where it comes from. Bouldering is the art of climbing these like small rocks that were usually deposited by glaciers or that fell off mountains. So it's usually just with pads, no equipment. Really all the equipment we're showing today is completely irrelevant for something like that. And we already went over these categories: the sport, top rope, trad, alpine, and rope access. On to the next one. So each of these pieces of gear have a number on them. And I want to do a little exercise where I want everyone to choose a gear pile to go towards. So this is 5 different groups, including that one out there, that piece right there, so everyone out there can participate. And designate a group leader. And I want you to figure out a few different things about it. So you need to determine what job it performs, what does it not do, and what human mistake could defeat it. These are all distinct categories. John, can you pass that one to them? They need that one.
They're at the bottom of the screen.
If anyone wants to join the control category, it's over here.
Yeah.
What are the categories? Oh, 5 categories.
Body and energy, protection, connections, control, movement, and backup. These are a little bit of a spoiler to what they do, but don't read into those too much. But yeah, everyone go to a category and try to answer with the people around you what you think these things do.
Anyone want to join? So, what does it do? What does it
So I used to
The wear and tear is giving it away. What's up? No, you're good. You're good. Two. Yeah. All right. You guys have answers or you need more time? Very cold, very cold. This is a hard one because you're skimp on equipment. It has a very specific use, but this is a harder one.
Okay, warm or cold?
It needs to be coiled up, like to be in use.
You can do what you can with those.
That's ham.
Well,
And then what did you say? It's not rock.
I'm gonna tell you what this. It would be coiled up with something on this. That's all I'm gonna say.
Wyatt. So I used to like Yvon in Tennessee in high school.
Yeah.
My teacher taught me that like these are actually sometimes could be less stable than small.
Really.
That's it's like
Yeah.
there's more
Yeah.
feel the same.
Especially if like if the gap is small and you put a big one this much into something, it's like way less stable versus a smaller one that like. Yeah, you definitely don't want it so engaged because that's really bad.
Right size of equipment.
Yeah, because if I had to put it in it like this, it's like too big versus you want something like that.
I see, okay. Makes sense.
Let's
That's
Other way around, like you're bumping, and it's like, what if you
maybe it's unfair for Bennett.
If you forget it, like you will start to
Extra safety
Should we have a time?
I'm gonna yell in a second.
Alright, I'm gonna start.
All right. All right. I hope everyone has their answers ready. All right. We're gonna go to body and energy, group 1. Let's go in order here. So designate someone to speak on behalf of you, and let's hear the answers to what you guys have.
Brandon.
So what job does it perform? You think that as a whole, those things as a whole?
Stand up, show
Wait,
it around.
demo.
No one can hear you.
Can you give us a demo?
Speak with your chest.
hold your bottom, and you have the rope forced to stay at the right on the rock.
Oh my gosh.
Well, for grip,
Yeah.
just stay controlled.
Yeah, I'd say as a whole, that's pretty good. What does it not do?
It does not look like it sticks into the rock anywhere. So I think we need something.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point.
Valid.
What kind of mistakes do you think could defeat the purpose of what those do?
Mistakes.
So you said, what job they perform. What do you think?
You need them to fit correctly, or you're
Right.
gonna fall out.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this category, body and energy, I would say these are things you're attaching to your body and protecting your body. So you'll notice also there we have a helmet. We have gloves. So are you preventing damage to your hands when using the rope a lot? Are you preventing rocks from falling on your head? You need a connection to your body to the rope, and that's where the harness comes in. They're exactly right. What does it not do? Those don't connect you to anything. Those don't connect to the rock in any way. Those don't, by itself, a rope, how's that going to catch you, right? It's the rest of this equipment that we'll go over that actually makes sense for. Group 2, protection. What job does that stuff perform?
You want me to go?
It stabilizes the climber into a cracked rock. So if a climber is climbing and they find a crack that they can insert themselves in, it holds them into place and allows them to not get unsteady.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the cam or the nut, and then the cam does more stabilization, I guess.
Yeah, so the job protection performs is you're climbing, you need a piece to put the rope on, so if you are to fall, the rope is going to catch on something above you to hold you in place or just tumbling down the mountain. That's the core of it. All those things do the same job. Those are pieces of protection for that. What does that stuff not do?
Well, we were saying it doesn't do everything else.
It's fair.
It doesn't give 100% protection. Right? You always have to be careful.
Yeah. That stuff also...
I would say that kind of goes into the human error thing.
Mm-hmm.
The human error that could happen is if a human doesn't insert the nut carefully enough into and firmly enough into a rock, they're not careful and
that's really the biggest
meticulous.
risk of that is finding the correct spot to put it. If you put it in the wrong spot, it's not going to do anything for you. It's just going to pull out.
Carelessness.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. We kind of covered that. So group 3, connections. Over there.
Group three.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure of the terminology, but it connects you to the things you were showing earlier where you put it in the rock. It connects to your harness, and then it also connects to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty spot on, right? We have the pieces of protection, we have the pieces for our body, and we need pieces in between for connection. We need ways to, that's why you have 2 carabiners on this. You would do one on a piece of protection, and one on the rope if you need to continue to climb above. If not, you just want to strap it into your harness, you can do that as well. What kind of human mistakes do you think could defeat connections?
I think if you're climbing and like it gets stretched too much, it would be difficult to like undo it. So you might have to like climb down a little bit. I think there's also a possibility where it could slip and you could like miss when you're trying to put it on the hook.
Yeah.
Anything else, team?
Got it, man.
Got it?
Yeah.
Anything?
Can you hand me that, Gabby?
Back to you, Don.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty spot on. I feel like as long as you're clipping it to something, it's hard at times to mess up. What we've got here are locking carabiners. So none of that is locking there, so I don't blame you all for thinking of this, but this has redundancy for I'm going to screw this and it can no longer accidentally come undone. And this as well is referred to as a quad because this is 4 times redundant if there were some break in the system. So when you're climbing, this would be something that you'd set a top rope on where I would clip this to 2 different anchors and then I would put my rope through these alternating. And this makes it so if there's rubbing on the rock, there's some sort of failure in the gear, etc., that the system is still completely redundant for you. So a lot of times, the biggest thing with like connections or mistakes is redundancies. Moving on to control.
So I believe this is air traffic control, which is what the belayer is using to essentially introduce friction in between these devices so that when the rope passes through, you can catch the climber when it's falling down if something happens. And this connects with the rope, I believe. This connects with the rope. And this connects with the belayer, and then you just control the climber if he's falling or not, or she's falling.
So yeah, you have the name. Yeah. It's ATC. Does not mean air traffic control, but you do have the name. I actually don't, off the top of my head, know ATC.
Okay.
Maybe I can think of it, but yeah, that's basically it. This is a piece of equipment used by a belayer to give slack and take slack out of a system when your climber's climbing, so that way when they fall, the rope's just not on the ground and they all go all the way down, then it catches you and your body weight is in the system to make sure they don't fall all the way. This does a similar purpose. This is a gree-gree. This is, compared to this is a very like passive piece of equipment. It's existed for a while. This is a little bit more safer one. It's got an auto locking mechanism where if it feels a tug in a certain direction, it's actually gonna lock. So if you still need to practice, like safe belaying, etc., which we're not really gonna cover here, but the last category is movement and backup. Go ahead.
So we had a few like
Sarah.
This. How does this work? Just hold it? Oh, okay. So this is our tool. It seems pretty simple, but we had a few creative ideas with it and what maybe it could do. At first we had it uncoiled and had it as like a little satchel to hold some spare tools, like a little purse.
Yes.
But then we said maybe around our waist if we needed some extra connection. But then we came up with this coil situation, and movement is kind of like the focus of it. So we think that you could connect this if a tool doesn't work properly for backup to move horizontally.
Yeah. So this is
kind of like a multifunctional.
Yeah, this is a hard one.
The satchel's fun.
I'm gonna be honest. This is a very hard one.
One for fun, one for function.
The purpose of this, and the reason I coiled it for them rather than being in free form, it's a little bit easier to maybe find the purpose of it. This is actually a lot of these systems. When we look at these pieces of protection, are built on friction and the direction of force. So if I was to have a rope in here and I hold it up, I'm not utilizing the friction systems versus if I'm holding it down and it has these ridges. And if you think about that, it's significantly higher force if someone was to fall when it's up versus down, etc. This is similar. When rappelling, this is called a prusik. It's also referred to as a third hand, because what this allows you to do is coil this around a rope, hook this up to your harness, and hook it up to a device like this, where if you were to completely fall while rappelling, that this would create enough friction to pull up the rope to stop you. So if you were to get hit by a rock and pass out, etc. These categories of things are a little bit, I don't have a bunch of them. It's a little bit harder with the movement and backup, but it all comes back down to redundancies. You don't want a medical emergency or you accidentally letting go of the rope resulting in the end, right? I mean, you don't want to fall completely down. And I guess, so my computer isn't firing up, tie into the conclusion here. All this gear kind of comes together to ultimately like reduce mistakes. You want no loose ends when it comes to climbing. And as a whole, you're constantly checking all this stuff to prevent a mistake. It takes 15, 20 seconds to check all the gear when something like this that prevents, a 20-hour rescue. So the way I tie it back to work, go ahead, John.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No.
Like, what are like common errors, like novices? Like, I'm looking at this.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even tell you, how, like, what is like the most common error people typically make? Is it like the friction part or?
What's the common error you've made?
A common error I have made. It's a great question. I think some of the knots you need to tie with the rope can be a little bit complex, but the ways to check them are not complex. So I've made plenty of mistakes tying knots, but every time I tie a knot, I go through a check for that type of knot. And there's many a times where I've tied the knot and I do my checks and I'm like, nope, that's not right, I need to do it again. And that's the core of it. You're not under a time crunch or anything. It's like, take your time, do the thing correctly, do the checks, do it again if it's not correct, ask someone, get more experience, that kind of stuff. What was your thing, John, as well?
Just like common mistakes.
Common mistakes. Yeah, like not a really common one is not using the locking carabiners. So the reason you use this is, let's say there's a branch, a rope. A lot of times the rope, if it's above specifically, if you were to take a fall the wrong direction and this was on it like this, it can come undone. That's it right there. You're out of the system if it's not locked. So that's a really common one, is when using things like this. Just because it's a carabiner, it may seem safe, but freak things can happen with friction and force and direction of movement that result in this kind of stuff. So when thinking about your work, I think it's interesting to like tie it back. Like, what are the 15-second, 20-second checks you can do to verify things that prevent like massive issues down the line? That's it. Yeah.
Is there a similar level of invention for caving?
A lot of the gear here is also used in systems for caving. So rappelling, ascending. Most of the stuff with caving though is you're going to have a rope, you're going to tie an anchor, something like this, above the cave, and you're going to lower it, and then you're going to use gear like this to rappel down it. And then a piece of gear I don't have with us today, because I'm a rock climber, not a caver, is an ascender. And that's basically a piece that allows you to slide it up the rope, that allows you to go back up the rope without having to climb. The art of climbing is really like you want to just use the rock, and if you can't get it, you give up. But the systems in there allow someone to not climb out of the cave, but rather just ascend back up the rope. So it's a lot of the very same equipment. If I was to go caving, I would just need an ascender and carabiners, ATC, rope, helmet, etc., and I'd be able to go.
Is coming down as complicated as going up, or is it more like how complicated is coming down?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I guess like one thing I didn't cover is the majority of climbing fatalities are on the way down. Yeah. And the reason is people want to rush it and get off the mountain, because the majority of the effort is in going up. And then coming down, you're relaxed a lot of times, and that results in you making more mistakes. You want to rush down and get home. You want to be done with it because you've already accomplished what you want to accomplish. So that's a big reason why people you gotta still do your checks, still do all this stuff to ensure that, it's not hard. It's really just you're letting gravity do its work, and it's monotonous, it's boring, but it is where the majority of accidents happen.
What exercise would you recommend for someone to get better at climbing?
Pull-ups. You can just spam pull-ups.
Great.
Yeah.
Audition to get a pull-up bar for the 7th floor building.
For the 7th floor. I want it on this floor.
We can get two pull-up bars. Or 7.
How are those going to be mounted?
Do you have some like dream places that you want to climb next?
Oh, great question.
Yeah. Trying to remember the name of it. It's in Wyoming. I'd say in general, I'd like to do a little bit more mountaineering, which we didn't really cover today, which is not necessarily rock climbing, but it's more like extremely technical hiking and a lot of the same gear with attached to ropes, attached to other people, etc., used and shown here, but a little bit of a different skill set. I'm forgetting the name of the rock. If anyone knows the name, it has a big formation. It's completely flat on top. It's in Wyoming. It has huge streaks marking down it. No? Okay. I forget the name of it, but it's on my list.
Head from Carolina.
Devil's Tower, right?
Devil's Head?
Look up Devil's Tower. See if we can show a picture of that.
Yeah, it's Devil's Tower.
Devil's Tower. So close. Great job.
So Devil's Tower is one of like it's a very, we'll show a picture of it, but it's a very striking. Are you able to show a picture of it too?
Oh, yeah. SB. Sorry, SB.
Not doing that.
Wow. She's not on Chrome? Wow.
Yeah, so this is a very striking rock formation out compared to everything around it. Yeah, some lore around how, the native tribes used to think it was formed. Anyway, there's many different climbing. Maybe eventually. A lot of different climbing routes up that range from like very easy to very hard, but it's multi-pitch. So what I described of like, it's longer than the length of your rope, you would have to climb it. This is a rock formation that was very protected. So there's no bolts. You would have to, anyone remember the name of when you have to place your own protection? Trad. You have to trad climb it because there's no bolts. It's like a protected national park. So nothing like that of the sorts. So you would have to do the sort of alternating climbing where someone would place the protection, climb up, get to a rest point, and then the person would follow, take it out, and you'd repeat till you get to the top.
How do you rest? You just hang there?
Yeah, you would basically be on here. Can you guys hand me that? See all the black loops with that loop? Yeah.
Crocodile.
I get that.
There's 2 of them.
I didn't really cover this, but this is a piece specifically designed to go in your harness. And then the multiple loops are so you can adjust. When you get to an anchor station, you could clip into it, lock it up, and hang on it. So you would just hang. And the reason it has the multiple loops is so you could choose the ideal length for hanging there to be most comfortable and like adjust your loops without completely taking yourself off it. Cool. Yeah.
Like I know a lot of these mountains and places that people climb, there is like a lot of lore. Is there anywhere you wouldn't climb because of the lore attached to it? Good question.
The like spiritually the lore or or risk. Yeah.
Like there's too many ghosts somewhere.
Or maybe the vibes.
It's a good question.
What's the haunted ground?
I would say I don't really have anything quite in that vein. One thing I don't want to do is referred to as big walling. And do people know what El Cap is? Yes. Yeah, Yosemite. Massive wall. Scaling that takes usually multiple days and camping out on the side of the wall. Does not sound fun to me. Just gonna avoid that.
I've seen the photos of like people
sleeping on it? Like,
Yeah.
how do you sleep?
So that's
It's
you basically need to climb every length of rope like twice because you're hauling up bags of gear for your tent, for all your other stuff. So that's part of the reason I wouldn't. You usually don't climb it either. You use ascenders, and it's not quite the same.
How do you conquer your fear of heights?
Just didn't have one. I'm scared of falling.
Right. You don't have one. Yeah, easy. Right.
Oh, how are you?
Climbing? I first climbed a few years ago. Been really into it for a bit over a year in terms of like outdoor. Right now I'm going outdoors climbing maybe once every few months or so. I can get a trip going. Just different destinations, winter, summer, whatever. I go to mostly a rock climbing gym. So like bouldering, what we described, works a lot of the same muscles. So that way, when I'm only doing it every few months, I'm still physically ready for a trip like that.
Why do you like it?
Why do I like it? It's a great question. I think it helps calibrate risk and fear quite a bit. I think we live in a world where we are very risk adverse and we oftentimes don't encounter real risk. Like what stresses us in our day-to-day is like things that are so inconsequential in the grand scheme of things of actual life or death actions, which like humans for thousands of years have like done. So I really do think it helps calibrate that like appetite for risk and risk versus reward ratio where what's the worst thing that can happen to me standing in this office today versus what's the worst thing doing this thing. And it makes things significantly less scary.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah.
Favorite
Good question.
athlete to the mountaineer in space?
Good question. I'd say Adam Ondra. Yeah.
He's the best climber I know.
And what's so like attractive about this?
He's just what's so appealing about him to me? I mean, he's just an animal. Like he's just a different breed. No fear, no nothing.
Maybe open for questions from the folks on Zoom. Dylan, I know you got one. Oh.
Cool.
Unfortunately, there's no typing.
All right,
Last question.
Okay, last question.
Mark Andre.
Leclerc. Yeah. Yeah, we didn't cover ice climbing in this one, but it was an ice climber who tragically died climbing a mountain in Alaska. But there's a really good documentary about it.
He's South America, right?
He was in Patagonia for some time. The one he died on was in Alaska.
Oh, okay.
Marc-Andre Leclerc. There's a really good, the movie's called The Alpinist. It's a really good watch.
Sick. He's so good.
I kind of spoiled the ending, but yeah, he passed away. Yeah, that wraps it up.